Hey everyone, this is Stefan from ProjectLifeMastery.com, and I'm sitting down with my good friend Wade Lightheart, who is the co-founder of BiOptimizers. He's also a 3-time national bodybuilding champion. He's competed in Mr. Universe as a vegetarian, and he is here and focused his life on helping people improve, optimize, and fix their digestion. So Wade, thank you so much for taking the time.
Great to be here, Stefan.
Do you mind sharing with my audience, I know you've been on my channel before and shared a bit about your story, but do you mind sharing with them a little bit about yourself and why you've made this your focus in life now to help people optimize their health and physical well-being?
Yeah, well, you know, it's been a long journey, and I was always interested in health and fitness, and it started when my sister lost her life to cancer at a very early age, and that had a big impact on me. I was 15 at the time when she died. She was 18. And I realized that health isn't a guarantee, even at a young age, and vibrancy. And I went down a bodybuilding route thinking that if I built my muscles out, if I looked good, then maybe I was healthy. But what a lot of people don't realize is I had a lot of success. I studied exercise physiology at university. I had a lot of great mentors. I had some awesome bodybuilding coaches. But when I competed at the Mr. Universe contest, after that show, I gained 42 pounds of fat and water in 11 weeks. So I was like shocked. You know, my whole life had been dedicated to kind of that what I would call cosmetic performance. We celebrate high performance athletes or models or, you know, movie stars because they look good. But oftentimes what people don't know about the behind the scenes is they're actually compromising their health to look good. And that was the case for me. And I had the best of the best helping me. And so I was fortunate enough to meet a doctor. His name was Dr. Michael O'Brien, and he was like this super vibrant 70s guy, and he had all this energy, and he was super strong, and I was like, you know, this guy can kick my ass, you know, like, obviously he knows something that I don't. And so I asked him, I said, how did this happen? How did I go from Mr. Universe to Mr. Marshmallow? And he says, Wade, you've learned to build the body from the outside in. You haven't learned to build the body from the inside out. And I was just like, that made so much sense to me. And so I went on a routine. He told me I needed to fix my digestion. I had blown it out by doing all the whey protein and all the traditional sports supplements and what you find at the traditional bodybuilding stores and things like that. And so I went on a program of rebuilding my digestion using enzymes and probiotics and specific diet and everything. And it worked. I mean, 6 months later, I felt great. I had lots of energy. I was able to perform at a higher level than before. I didn't have any of the side effects. And over 4 years, I kind of perfected that model. I started a company with my business partner, Matt Gallant, and we helped now, I think, over 50,000 people correct their digestive. And everybody from like, you know, we've been on Truth About Cancer, helping people who are suffering from cancer or recovering from cancer treatment. We've been on, you know, high performance bodybuilding shows. We've been in like, you know, famous people that are high risk. Like it's kind of went on this own journey because right now, digestive-related illnesses are the 5th leading cause of death. Gastrointestinal dysfunction is running rampant. People are, you know, bloated, they're tired, they have brain fog, they've got skin conditions. All of this actually relates to their gut. And that's the second brain. Also, now they're discovering the gut-brain connection. And so I realized that there was an opportunity here to address an issue that most people aren't aware of, or when they don't know how much they're being compromised. They just say, I don't feel good on this diet, or I can't lose weight, or I have brain fog, or I don't have energy, or I have anxiety, or all these things. And it's oftentimes right to their gut health. And so as a company, we decided we're going to fix digestion. And we've been doing that now for almost 14 years, I guess.
That's amazing. And that's what we want to focus on today, is how to heal your body and optimize yourself from the inside out. And I think a lot of people, as you mentioned, they're so focused on the outside, how they look, their muscle mass, you know, their waist and their aesthetics of that, but they don't realize oftentimes that can be at a cost or an expense of their internal body and how they feel. And one of the biggest ones you mentioned was digestion. I think that it was like 96% of all disease originates in your gut. So why is digestion so important, and how does the digestion process work?
Great question. So Hippocrates, the father of modern medicine, said that all disease begins in the gut. So this is something that happened like 2,500 years ago. There's I think a fundamental assumption that gets people in trouble, and that is the old meme, you are what you eat. And the reality is, you are what you digest, absorb, and utilize. And that process, as you alluded to, it has a series of components, and I'll explain it. So when you consume food, you start to chew it, right? And that's the first part of digestion. That activates digestive juices, it activates your nervous system. Actually, even smelling the food can start bringing it. So the sensory experience, touching the food, tasting the food. It's one of the reasons why finger food is so popular, because you actually get an aesthetic response. If you think of pizza, burgers, fries, all these things that people love, chips, you're actually touching the food. You're not eating it with forks and knives, and you get a different effect and has a different response, and an emotional response and a different brain response. So that starts to happen just by looking, sensing, tasting, touching the food. Then as it goes into the body, it travels down the esophagus and goes into what's called the upper cardiac portion of the stomach. Now, this is where problems start to happen. Number one, people start gulping their food, so they don't chew their food properly. Then it goes down into the stomach, and you've got about 30 to 60 minutes before hydrochloric acid will start being produced by your body. Now, during that time, this is where the enzymes present in the food are supposed to break down that food. Now, the thing is, humans are different than every other species in the planet, and that is that they are the only species that cooks their food. So cooking your food destroys all the enzymes, and the enzymes are the difference between the living and the dead. The difference between a stone and a plant or a person or whatever is the amount of enzymes, and there's about 25,000 different functions that biochemical reactions, enzymes really speed up chemical processes in the body and are essential for everything, thinking to blinking, as I say. So what happens there is if that food is undigested, naturally you have an initial problem. Now your body will start to produce enzymes to try to compromise it, but that has a huge metabolic cost. We'll get to that later. Then the hydrochloric acid comes in. So hydrochloric acid starts to change the pH, and that turns off certain enzymes and it turns on other ones, and then it breaks up the food. It also disinfects from bacteria, from viruses, from pathogens like parasites and things like that. And as we get older, we often don't produce enough hydrochloric acid. Ironically, acid reflux and heartburn, which is running rampant amongst the population, is caused not from too much hydrochloric acid, but not enough. And what happens if you don't produce enough hydrochloric acid? There's a little flap on the top of your stomach, or the lower part of the esophagus, called the lower esophageal sphincter, and it closes when enough acid is present in the stomach. It says, "Oh, we've got enough acid," shuts down. But if you're not producing enough, it stays open, and some of that acid and food mix will kind of burp up, and you start to get heartburn, you start to get burning in the esophagus, and then run into all the problems. Next stage of digestion. So that food is going to leave the stomach, and your body will create what's called bicarbonate buffers, which are minerals, which will buffer the acid so it doesn't burn your intestines. If you don't have enough minerals inside your body, what happens is your body will create gastritis or ulcers or things like that, which are very serious. And anybody that suffered from that's a real problem. And oftentimes it's stress related and lifestyle related and digestive related, but it's always related to digestion. And then the final stage, what happens is once the food mixture goes into the intestinal tract, there's what's called bacteria. And people think, oh, bacteria is evil or bad. Well, there's actually good bacteria, there's bad bacteria, and there's what I call opportunists. So about 10% of the bacteria in your body is good, 10% is not so good, and 80% kind of adjust based on your lifestyle, your diet, what's going on in your life. And that may be positive or negative, depending. Oftentimes when people travel, they get sick because they're eating different food, they don't have the bacteria to break it down, or they ingest some bacteria that they're not used to, and that throws off their microbiome. This is also considered the second brain. And so what happens is these bacteria actually hook into our nervous system, and they control our thoughts. So that craving that you have at 2 o'clock in the morning to run down the street and get an ice cream and a burger or something is not you talking, it's the bacteria asking to be fed. And they're jacked into your nervous system. People that have anxiety and depression, oftentimes that's related to a disbalance in the microbiome. Skin conditions. And basically what happens, if you don't complete that whole digestive process in the first part, then you have undigested food that's coming into the last part, And the bad bacteria are feeding off that, and they're producing all kinds of neurotoxins, and that comes out in your skin, it comes out in the way you think, it can come out in your emotions, it can come out in weight gain, gas, bloating. And then the final stage is you have what's called peristaltic contraction that allows you to eliminate the waste properly. And of course, a lot of people suffer from constipation and things like that, particularly when you travel, and some of it's related to hydration, some of it's microbiome, some of it's enzymes. So all of this is part of the aspect of digestion. Now the challenge is, in today's world, we have a mass of food that's grown on mineral deficient soil. It doesn't have a lot of enzymes, doesn't have a lot of the protein content it used to have. It's grown with herbicides, pesticides, fungicides. All of those interrupt enzymatic process. All of those things will kill pathogens like good bacteria. We take antibiotics for everything, which does not discern between good bacteria or bad bacteria. It just kills everything. And then we have these lifestyles that are glued in front of, blue screens and stuff like that, which also interrupt how we interpret data and how our microbiome is. So light therapy and all this stuff is now becoming popular to try and reconfigure the human condition to the digital world that we're living in. And so what's happened is we've altered human lifestyle so much, and there's great advantages to it. I'm not here to say that's wrong, but what we have to do is get our digestion in order to deal with the challenges of the digital world. And it seems kind of ironic that the more digital we go, the more we've got to focus on what's going on internally.
Yeah, so do you see a lot of it is lifestyle related, the foods that people are eating, how they're living, that's inhibiting their body's ability to digest and assimilate and eliminate, I guess, certain foods as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, let's face it. Up until about 100 years ago, 90% of the population worked on a farm. Mm-hmm. Okay, now it's less than 2% of the population actually produces farm. The way crops are grown. So when you took a carrot out of the ground, like my mom grows a garden, you take a carrot out of the ground, it had good bacteria on that, so like soil bacteria, and you would eat the carrot and nobody thought anything of it. You would get your food in a fresh place. You didn't have herbicides, pesticides, and fungicides on growing, so the plants were hardier, and also you didn't have all these chemical agents. Plus, there's like over 15,000 man-made chemicals that are in the world. Many of these interrupt that. The advancement of antibiotics, and I'm not saying that antibiotics are bad, but the overprescription of them becomes a problem. So all of these are compounding. Now you have people, teenagers today, when we were kids, like you didn't see a lot of kids that had depression. You didn't see a lot of kids that had obesity issues or the skin issues that's so common and prevalent today. Well, a lot of that's traced back, not only are they eating a poor diet or having a poor lifestyle, but their parents were. And so now we're getting generational passed on, and we're running into a lot of problems with hormones and dysfunction. So it's a result of the world. We're sitting in front of computers. We're not as active as we used to. Our food has been altered, genetically modified foods everywhere, preservatives, dyes, all this sort of stuff it's kind of like all of these things together. So I think one of the mentalities people have is they think they're looking for the one thing. Mm-hmm. It's not the one thing, it's all of these things. Yeah. And so what we do as a company is we try to identify what are the things a person needs to do immediately to start getting a change and to start to recognize, hey, you know what? I can take control of this. I can take back my health. I can get my digestion going and then do the things that I want to do in life.
Got it. Now, I know you're vegetarian. A lot of your diet is more plant-based. But going back, I think a lot of people watching this, they might think, well, I work out and, I have my whey protein. I'm having my, chicken and brown rice and some vegetables on the side, and therefore I'm healthy. And you kind of went down that path. And I think, what a lot of people might not realize is that some of those foods like whey protein powders or dairy products or, chicken or beef or some of these foods that people, look at and say, this isn't junk food, but often those foods that are cooked and processed are deficient in enzymes, and they can go undigested in the gut, which can ferment and putrefy. Do you mind sharing a little bit about that process and why it's important, if you are going to have cooked foods, why you got to make sure that you have the enzymes and the body's ability to actually break that down and digest it?
Yeah, great point. And I would say there's a difference between and what most of the dietary recommendations in the performance world are what I would call cosmetic diets. they work in the fact that, yeah, you will be low body fat or you'll do whatever, but oftentimes you're compromising that digestive thing and you run into a problem like I did. Like, so I'm not here to condemn anybody. I'm just saying, I know how that goes. I know where it ends up. And then you see all the guys and girls that were in my era when I was competing and doing this. What are they doing now? They're all doing enzymes and probiotics and they're all gone to plant-based stuff because they've gone through the same problem. Like
Arnold Schwarzenegger now is such a
Arnold Schwarzenegger is a great example, and he's talking about how he needs to switch.
Yeah, it's a picture of bodybuilding, right?
And one of my mentors as well. And so I think what happens is when you don't have a digested food, there is a metabolic effect because your body is spending a lot of enzyme reserves. It's spending a lot of energy trying to break down that food. And there's some metabolic benefits to that. Okay, so digestion is taking up 70% of the energy to break down your food. So they're like, oh, okay, so I stay leaner and I look better. But if you walk into any bodybuilding gym and you smell, like you go into the change room, it smells horrible. And that's a sign that there's some bad things going on in your head. I also see a high rate of depression and anxiety that happens to people. And you would never think about it. They're like YouTube stars, they're professional athletes and stuff. And they're suffering from these conditions because their diet isn't addressing their digestive stuff. And these bacterias are creating toxins that are affecting their brain and affecting how they think and they're affecting how they feel. Mm-hmm. And it's like, it's hard to pinpoint because you can't see this stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that's an area that people have to recognize that undigested food in your body now becomes a toxin. And most of the food that is recommended in these quote unquote performance or cosmetic diets are frankenfoods. They're manufactured, they're not stuff that the humans have learned to eat over, however long humans have been on the planet. And so our bodies aren't designed for that. And they may have some certain short-term benefits, but the long-term costs. I always say it's like paying off your mortgage with your credit card.
Yeah.
It solves the problem in the short term, but down the road, you're going to have to pay it off with like massive amounts of interest.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the solution. I know there's the diet component, what are certain foods that people should be eating more that can actually allow their body to better digest. And let's also talk about probiotics or other lifestyle changes that people can make.
Yeah, great. I think first and foremost, I think anybody can benefit from getting some genetic testing and maybe a naturopathic doctor to take a look at what is the right diet for them. My business partner does really well on a keto diet. So I'm not here to advocate vegetarianism or veganism or anything like that. I'm not a vigilante vegan. I choose a diet that works well for my body, my metabolism, my genetics, and my epigenetics, and I have professionals that help me with that. And I think investing a little bit of money in that is a great idea from anyone so you can get some real data. So you're not trying to follow someone else's program. Second thing is, there's two things that I think people really need to add to their diet that they'll notice a big difference, and that is enzymes and probiotics. If you're sick a lot, if you're having skin conditions, if you have anxiety, if you have bloating and gas, probably a really good probiotic would be the first place to start. That's where people start to get a benefit. And then I think neck and neck to that is a high quality enzyme. The challenge is today, I guess, is that there's so many probiotics out there. You walk into Whole Foods, right? There's 50 different probiotics. There's some that's $5 and some that's $100. There's enzymes that are $5 and enzymes that are $120. And they all kind of look the same. And if you're not an expert, how do you determine which is what's an effective product, what's an ineffective product? And I think that's part of the challenge for people is to understand the difference between a Me Too product and something that's actually going to work. And the reality is almost all of the probiotics on the market today don't work. They're hopes in a bottle. They're multi-strain probiotics that oftentimes the strains compete against each other. They don't have the proper prebiotics and postbiotics so that they'll colonize. And so there's two different types of probiotics, colonizers and transient strains. And the data, now that you can go get a BiOptimizer test and you can check out, it's relatively, it's a couple $100. Mm-hmm. And as I talked to Naveen James, the owner of that, it's $1 billion company that's testing people's microbiome.
That's the gut microbiome test by BiOptimizer?
Yeah. Now, here's the fascinating part. a lot of the quote unquote big names in the health industry, whether it's, Ben Greenfield or Elliot Halls or Dave Asprey, all these different people have talked, and Mike Bledsoe, that they've all talked and used our products. But a lot of them were doing tests beforehand. They were taking all these different probiotics and stuff, and nothing was showing up in their microbiome.
Right.
And that's because they didn't have the right food, they didn't have the right prebiotics, postbiotics, or it wasn't a good bacteria strain, or the bacteria strain was dead. And that's what Naveen Jain says, most of it's garbage. And the idea is that most of the strains out there are what's called a colonizing strain that's supposed to colonize and grow in your microbiome and create that. And most of them aren't doing that.
Right.
And so we understood that 15 years ago.
So a lot of these things that people might be thinking about might be yogurt.
Right.
That's a common, people think, I'm getting my probiotics from that. Or I guess there are certain foods that are more fermented. But I know, you're right. They throw probiotics now in protein powders.
Yes, and everything.
It's like a complementary type of thing. And I think it's now a marketing tool for these companies. Like, oh, probiotics. And they're going to buy that just because it has some of it in it. But what you're saying is that the quality of it is extremely important. And you got to get the right sources.
Yeah, I think if you look at the history of fermented foods, and I do believe that I think everyone can benefit from adding fermented foods into their diets, and fermented foods should be relative to the diet that they're on. So for example, if you're from European descent and your families grew up on sausages and sauerkraut and meats and things like that, sauerkraut's probably a good fermented food. You'll probably do better on sauerkraut than you will on, say, kimchi. Which is, or miso from Asia. If you're of Asian descent, you're probably going to do better on that if your diet is reflective of that particular culture. So if you look historically, cultures have developed fermented foods that work within the dietary parameters that they had, and I think those are good things for colonizing strains. But if you want to wipe out bad guys, and that's what we focus on, is like, how do I just kill off all the bacteria that are causing problems so that my body will naturally culture with a healthy diet? That's what we focused on, and we developed a super strain of a patented probiotic that allows us to do just that.
Yeah, let me actually pull that up for you. You guys have a few products that I use and love. This is the one you're referring to, the P3OM probiotics.
Yeah.
So do you mind explaining a little bit how this works?
Yeah, so this is a really cool thing.
So this is a single strain, you're saying?
Yeah, it's a single strain of probiotics. So what we
Which, by the way, means that there's just one type, because a lot of other ones, there's acidophilus, or there's a variety of different types, and you're saying they compete against each other versus the single strain. I'll maybe let you clarify that a bit.
Yeah, there's literally hundreds of strains of probiotics out there. I think the average person has somewhere between 200 and 500 strains of probiotics potentially in their body, and they've found some tribe in South America that has 200 different probiotics that we never even heard of before. So these are and when I say the bacteria cultures that perform specific functions. If we didn't have bacteria in our body, we'd be dead. We couldn't digest our food. So if enzymes cut the grass, probiotics mulch it, and that allows us to use the units and the energy units. But what happens is, if you looked at the hospitals, and follow with me on this.
Yep.
We all heard of antibiotic resistant bacteria strains. So we came out with antibiotics 60, 70 years ago, and they solved, if you got an infection for that, you just kind of died. People in wars and stuff they just died from infections. People got a nail and got some kind of infection, and they didn't have a cure for it. And so antibiotics came out and they wiped all that out.
Yeah.
But over time, a certain amount of these bacteria became resistant to antibiotics because of the environment they get. So these guys are very smart, they're very adaptable, and they evolved. And so today, one of my friends is a world-class Harvard surgeon, put the first stent in the body. He said, Wade, the biggest threat to people in surgery is not the surgery, dying from the surgery. He says it's dying from an infection from surgery in the hospital. Surgery's come so far in that time. And so what I realized is, wouldn't it be cool if you subjected a probiotic strain to environmental conditions that turned it into a super bacteria? Just like we created resistant antibiotics, like bacteria-resistant antibiotics, or why not have a strain that had different functions? So what we did is we took a very robust and aggressive strain called L. plantarum. We put it through a process which is almost like the Navy SEALs buds training. In other words, we subject it to these extreme conditions that allow the bacteria to mutate and grow in a way that has all of these incredibly unique capabilities. Number one, it breaks down protein. Almost no bacteria does that. The advantage of that is undigested protein is the biggest source of toxicity inside the body, right? Number two, it attacks viruses and bad bacteria inside the body. So viruses hook onto your body through a protein coating, and that's how it replicates in itself. It'll attack that. Bad bacteria that are causing disease and causing gas and bloating and depression, all that, it'll attack those and kill those guys. So it literally goes through the whole body. It doesn't just stay in the digestive system. It goes into your blood, goes into your toes, goes everywhere, and just literally cleans up all the undigested protein in your entire body, wipes out all the pathogens, and allows your body to operate the way it was designed. And so it's been really remarkable of what it's done and the effects that it has for people.
Awesome. So how would you typically use this?
Yeah, great. Well, there's a couple of different ways. If you want to be, first off, this type of bacteria is a premium price bacteria. This is something that has been custom designed to work. It's very effective. So if price is one of the issues that you want to worry, I would take 4 capsules every night before you go to bed. And the reason why you would do that, it's very unusual in bacteria why you would do that. But with this strain, what it'll do, it'll go through the body and start cleaning up the whole system while you're sleeping. In other words, it's just like the street cleaners. They go out and clean them. You don't see what happens at Disney World? Well, it's the same thing with this. And usually within a few weeks of doing that, people start go, wow, I feel better. Or I'm waking up. I don't have brain fog. I don't need that coffee in the morning.
Is that with a meal or without a meal?
No, take it on an empty stomach.
Okay.
Now you can, if you want to go, if you're really compromised, I would suggest that people take it maybe in the morning, few caps in the morning, few caps at night, and maybe 1 or 2 caps with their meals, right? That's if, you
really want to be optimized.
Yeah, and we do have an advanced protocol that we do, which is like a 90-day program. So people who are really struggling and stuff, I would highly recommend they do 90 days of an aggressive treatment in combination with enzymes, follow that process, and then after the 90 days, you just taper down to a maintenance dosage. For people who are really struggling, that's been the most effective. That's what I did to recondition my body. I went on a very high dosage for those 3 months, got rid of all the goop, fixed my system, and then just been operating at an optimal level. And I do that usually 2 times a year. I'll take 30 days where I just pound, I'll take 15, 20 a day for 30 days.
So I guess the question is, can you do too much, or is there a certain time duration that someone should take, or maybe take a break from taking the probiotics?
That's what's really unique about this particular strain. Because it's not an implant strain, it's a transit strain, there's really you're just putting more workers in the body. The only thing that does work in the body is enzymes and probiotics. And with these workers, you're not going to get an overgrowth because it doesn't colonize. It goes in, wipes out the bad guys, goes through the system, wipes out the bad guys. So the reality is the more that you take, the faster you get the result you're looking for. Mm-hmm. And so it really comes down to fitting within your budget protocol. I mean, obviously it'd be great if we could all just take 20 of these a day for a few months and just correct everything. And some people do that. Many of our clients do that. But for a person, start off at 4 if you want and go from there.
Very cool. So the product is P3OM Probiotics by BiOptimizers. I'll give you guys a link for this. If you go to www.projectlifemastery.com/P3OM, okay, so P3OM, then you guys can learn more about these probiotics. Now, I've been taking these for years, along with your Masszymes. I think I first got the Masszymes from you guys, which is this product. Man, it must have been like 10 years ago. And you guys have evolved it and improved it, and this is high in protease and many different other types of enzymes to help digest protein, fats, and carbs and everything. And I've gotten great benefits from this, and I know you guys also have a lot of athletes and bodybuilders that use these products to help to get more from the protein that they're using. But I actually got these products for my mom. I think I shared with this before in the last interview, because my grandfather died from colon cancer, and so my mom, she always goes in every year, I think, to get tested for that. But she's a little bit stubborn to make some of the lifestyle changes, and so this is a great product or solution for those that might not want to change their eating habits and whatnot. But she's gotten amazing benefits from it. I think way more than someone like myself, because I'm already pretty healthy and I do a lot of things for my health. But my mom's in her 60s and she takes these, I think, enzymes with every meal and probiotics once or twice. And she's told me so many times how her digestion's improved, her energy, her sleep, almost every function of her. So it's something that I always buy for my mom for Christmas and different holidays and things like that. But I think the best way is to test it and actually use it in your lifestyle. And I know for myself, I've noticed the difference, and especially I think if you already are living a certain way, a certain lifestyle, your eating habits, whatever it is, you'll notice an even bigger difference by using these types of products. I also want to ask you now too, if somebody really wanted to rework their digestive health, I know there's certain cleanses and protocols like that. I've done colon hydrotherapy and coffee enemas. Are there certain practices or things like that if somebody really was in a situation like that where they could really, maybe in like a 10-day plan of what they could do you think, to really get their digestion and their health back?
Yeah, actually, if they actually contact us at our customer support, we do have specific programs that people can initiate that I've worked with. Like I said, we've worked with over 50,000 people now. We've been able to help with their digestion, and people at extreme levels, people in an extreme level of dysfunction and disease and major components. And I would say that we have an advanced protocol, which is you're taking about 25 enzymes a day and about 12 of the probiotics a day. If they have a gluten issue, for example, we have products for gluten. If they have constipation issues, we have an extra herbal thing. We've got a new product coming out for parasites. Older people oftentimes do better on hydrochloric acid. They don't produce enough hydrochloric acid. So what we've done with our company is we're really unique. Number one, all of our products are backed by a 365-day guarantee. Number two, we have what I call, we'll fix your digestion guarantee. So in other words, let's say you bought the P3OM. For whatever reason, you didn't get the result you wanted. You contact your company, have a conversation with one of our trained staff and say, you know what, actually, it sounds like you really needed the enzymes. We'll send you a bottle of the enzymes to correct it until we get what's perfect for you. Because, in the optimal situation, you would have a professional naturopathic doctor, whatever, kind of set out that parameter. I know both you and I have NDs that are helping us customize our program, because it isn't a one-size-fits-all, and I want to be clear about that. But we do have programs around that. I do think that a great way to start is start with one-day fasts, one-day water fasts. Okay. And what that does is that allows and gives your body a rest. It rests your digestive powers. It saves your enzymatic processes. It allows your body to flush out toxins, and you want to drink a lot of water and make sure you have minerals inside the water and stuff, and flush that. You can move to 3 days, work up to 3 days, and then ultimately if you can get to a 5 or 7 or a 10-day water fast, which I've done, and people go, that's crazy. And I remember when that sounded insane to me, but I started small. Colonics, I think a lot of people would benefit from doing a series of 10 or 20 colonics based with a colon therapy. Another great one that people can do if they're suffering from a lot of toxins is they can go do an Ayurvedic cleanse like a Panchakarma, which is you can do that in 10, 14, or 21 days programs. And what they do is they have a whole process where they put a lot of oils into your body and herbs. Then they take you through a process where you're actually vomiting, and you're going to the bathroom like multiple times a day to kind of purge the cells of your system, because most people don't realize how much undigested food is actually built up in their stomach. I think when they opened up John Wayne after he died, they found like 40 pounds of crap in him. Yeah. And you see the people with the distended stomachs and the bloating and all that stuff. That's what's going on. There's just massive amounts of undigested food in their system, and it oftentimes takes a bit of time. And again, start slowly, build up, get a professional in your corner, and then once you get into it and start realizing and seeing the benefits, then it becomes you understand why we get so enthusiastic about it.
Yeah, no, I really want to emphasize the importance of giving your digestive system a break like that, so that it can actually do its job and actually even, you know, work on other processes of the body as well, because when the body's so focused on always digesting, it can often take away from other processes. And it's important to do, you mentioned colonics or colon hydrotherapy, to also load up on probiotics when you do that, because you can wash out a lot of that stuff too, right?
Yeah, you can wash out the good guys. And that's why, again, a little bit of information can be dangerous.
Right.
You know, people want to do one thing, or they heard someone did this and they decide that they want to do it, but they don't necessarily know where they're on that journey. And that's why we've trained our staff to help people in regards to that. We also have a course that everybody gets. It's the 84-day Awesome Health course. And basically what I've done is I've created a sequential system that they can either mix and match and go whatever they want, or they can go through the entire course to learn all the things that I've learned over 30 plus years in the industry, to say, hey, here's a way that I can completely systematically rebuild my health. And we offer that with all our clients.
Amazing. So last question I have, do you mind sharing a little bit about some of these other products? Because I know some people might watching, this one's for gluten intolerance.
This one's going crazy. We all heard the gluten-free diets, the problems with gluten. Gluten, for most people, don't realize it's not a carbohydrate, it's actually a protein.
Right.
And you can imagine it's like a baseball, and if you've seen the cover knocked off a baseball, you can see all the thread inside. But gluten is like that cover, and your body can't break this down. And so one of the reasons that gluten-free diets have become so popular is because there's so much gluten. You go into a restaurant, it's probably contaminated with gluten unless it's gluten-free. There's all these different, like mustard has gluten, soy sauce has gluten. There's all these different things that have gluten. And because our bodies don't break that down, what happens, that becomes an undigested food. It causes inflammation, causes bloating, in severe cases, excruciating pain. And so what we found out is that there is an enzyme called DPP4, dipeptidyl peptidase 4, that actually breaks down gluten. So we've created, again, all of our products are the strongest products you can get. We don't build products based on price. We build products based on performance. Matt and I are both, my business partner, we're both personal trainers. That's how we started out 20 years ago and helping people. And so we always built performance-based products on that. It's because nothing's more expensive than a product doesn't work. Yep. But this will go in, break down the gluten. Literally, we have pharmacies now that are carrying this product because it's the strongest DPP4 that you can get without a prescription. And it's amazing. So you can go out, you can have that pizza, you can have that bread without feeling sick. You can, have that stuff with the soy sauce and not have that food hangover in the morning. And so there's so many people that just feel great that they get their life back. And so it's not about being perfect or being restrictive. It's about, hey, I've got something that'll break this down and you can kind of get on with your life.
Yeah, this is a game changer for anyone with gluten issues. How about this one, HCl?
Well, hydrochloric acid, that's what HCl stands for, and that's stomach acid. And that's an essential component of digestion. Number one, it disinfects, kills bacteria, kills viruses, kills parasites. Now, here's the thing. I'll tell you a personal story, right? So it was a few years back. I'd gone to Bali, picked up a parasite. So my ND calls me and she says, and she does my testing. She's got a hitchhiker. And I'm like, what do you mean? And she was like, yeah, you got a parasite. And I was like, oh, that's what's going on, because I felt something off. And I said, well, how'd they get a parasite? She said, well, wait. Sorry, dude, you're in your 40s now. You're not producing that much hydrochloric acid. I'm like, oh, come on, I'm perfect. And anyways, after a bit of discussion, and I had to kind of check my ego at the door, I started taking some hydrochloric acid on a super high dosage, because you can use this to wipe out parasites. And so I took a super high dosage of hydrochloric acid, and all of a sudden, the parasites were wiped out. But what I noticed is I had even more energy. I slept less. I started losing weight without doing anything different in my diet. And I was like, wow, geez, maybe I need more hydrochloric acid. So we went in, and again, I went in and built hydrochloric acid that combines all the enzymes that make it more active. And plus, we put the mineral buffers in it so that we buffer the acid when it comes out of the intestinal tract, because a lot of people are suffering from mineral deficiency. It's very, very common. So we call it HCl Breakthrough. It's the most advanced hydrochloric acid. Again, it's a strategically designed, customized system in order to produce hydrochloric acid. And a lot of people, particularly as you get older, really need this.
Awesome. Cool. Well, there's lots of incredible products and resources for you guys to fix your digestion. And even if you think your digestion is great, optimize it, improve it, make it the best that it can be. That's what I've been doing with myself and working with Wade and his great products and company. I'll link to all these products for you guys below in the description of this video and also on the blog post. But Wade, I want to say thank you, man, for taking the time. Appreciate it, and look forward to connecting again soon.
Thanks, man.